welcome, Dan. Super to have you on stage to kick off the Multichain Day. Maybe we can start by just you giving yourself a little bit of an intro and how you got into involved in Wormhole and a bit of the history of your involvement.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Dan Reeser, one of the two co-founders of the Wormhole Foundation. If you're not familiar, Wormhole is a interoperability protocol connecting over 40 chains across the industry and has been really around since the very early days of the multi-chain space, dating back around 4 years. Wormhole was founded actually originally by a team of German engineers on a grant from the Solana Foundation with the original goal of connecting Solana to Ethereum, which today sounds very basic, but back when Solana was getting started, they of course needed liquidity and assets to really kickstart their ecosystem. And then we progressed over time. We were incubated by Jump Trading in Chicago for a couple years. Jump invested a lot of amazing talent and resources into the project. And then I came on with another guy named Robinson Berkey about 2.5 years ago to help in the process of decentralizing the project. So we kicked off the Wormhole Foundation, and today we have Wormhole Labs, one of our product and engineering teams, and then X Labs is actually based in Buenos Aires, and they've been working on Wormhole for years as well on the engineering side. And then given that security is such an important piece of the cross-chain or multi-chain space, we also have a team called Asymmetric Research, which is a team 100% dedicated to security of Wormhole and also Wormhole connected chains and applications. So that team is constantly finding bugs and reporting these to teams like Circle, like Cosmos, and others that they've kind of reported over the years. So that's kind of the lay of the land, and maybe you can introduce yourself now as well.
So I'm Ian from the Linea team. Linea is a layer 2 ZK VM that was incubated by Consensus, who are the sponsors behind MetaMask wallet and a number of other projects like Infura and Diligence and so on. Anyway, it's a super pleasure to be here with you, Dan, because we've recently started using Wormhole for some of our technology stack, especially around the stablecoin that we've been using. And we've been big fans of what you guys have been doing in terms of trying to sort of facilitate the I'd say the defragmentation of liquidity, let's say, across ecosystems. I'd be curious to know, from your perspective, this cycle's been a bit strange, right? It's like been a little bit different to the last couple of cycles. And I was sort of interested to get your thoughts on how you see what trends you're seeing in this cycle versus previous cycles, and how that's played into what you've been doing with Wormhole.
Yeah, I think one of the key couple trends that we've seen in this cycle, going back to 2017 or so, when I first came into the industry, there was all these memes and conversations around someday the institutions will come. And 7 years later, it actually did happen really this year. And the two kind of main categories of that are, of course, stablecoins and tokenized assets. Stablecoins have been a critical part of our strategy. Going back to even when, if you're not familiar with CCTP, that's cross-chain transfer protocol. Circle launched this probably 3 years ago or so, and the original design of that was actually built by the Wormhole and Jump team, and we collaborated with Circle on that protocol. So Circle has launched that, and that has really had an impact, I think, on the stablecoin space with their burn and mint model, but has also had an impact on the expected user experience when transferring tokens cross-chain. Because prior to this stablecoin model, the burn and mint model, when Wormhole first started, if you used it, the experience was not great, but that was just the best technology at the time. There was a lot of token wrapping, and you had a lot of liquidity issues across chain. So over those 3-4 years, we've now progressed to a point where token transfers across chains can happen seamlessly, and the tokens that you're receiving on every chain are native to that chain. So an ERC20 on Ethereum and SPL on Solana and things like that. Now the other side, and I guess we're kind of building the basis for our conversation today. So the other side of this trend, I would say, is asset tokenization. This has really taken off in a big way. I think BlackRock's Biddle fund at one point got up close to the $5 billion mark in terms of the amount of AUM that they had on chain with their Biddle fund, which was a tokenized U.S. Treasury fund. I think today it's around 2.3 billion. But a lot of players in the tokenization space really followed, I think, the lead of BlackRock. And now we're sitting here where we have BlackRock, Apollo, Van Eck, and multiple other asset tokenization players really going into this space in a big way. And even what we've seen in the last 2-3 weeks with the market, just going to rwa.xyz, it's interesting to see that you still have billions and billions of dollars of tokenized assets in these funds, despite what's happening in the macro market and even the crypto market. But I'd be interested in also in what you guys are working on. Maybe we can start with the stablecoin space, and we're definitely working closely with Linea on this. So maybe you can kick that part off, and we can get into that.
Yeah, on our side, we launched a MetaMask debit card on the Linear chain about a year ago, just over a year ago, and we've been gradually rolling it out geographically. And whilst on and the card just allows you to, when you tap, you basically spend the stables out of your wallet. And what we felt was that we actually needed our own stablecoin to underpin that offering and to act as a sort of core element of liquidity on the Linear chain itself. So we launched MetaMask USD or MUSD recently, in conjunction with M0 and Bridge, and underpinning the M0 sort of architecture is the Wormhole messaging, a piece which allows us to then have interop at the moment between Ethereum and Linear. But as we roll out the card to other chains, like we recently announced the card was going to be available on Base and Solana, we'll be able to take that stablecoin to those ecosystems seamlessly. So it's been like core to our ability to roll out the stablecoin in conjunction with the card offering, which has been great.
Yeah, M0 is a stablecoin platform that someone on our team actually compared to like the Pump.fund for stablecoins. They are a white label stablecoin platform that any team like MetaMask or others can use to basically launch a stablecoin very easily with this full kind of toolkit already ready for them from the M0 team. And the value proposition that Wormhole adds to any team is growing liquidity and growing users for either asset issuers like the MUSD team, like or chains or applications. So this is a perfect example of kind of the full stack going from Wormhole messaging, which enables the data transfer across chains, M0 being the stablecoin platform built on Wormhole messaging, and then this MUSD asset leveraging the tools of M0 to build this stablecoin out of the box and have it natively issued on multiple chains. I think right now we're only at a few chains, and then this is going to be expanding to other chains in the ecosystem, which I'm not sure is public yet, but that will be happening soon. And this is an interesting, like the M0 platform and other similar platforms are an interesting evolution on USDT and USDC. Those stable coins, of course, are earning a lot of fees in treasury yield for the issuers of Circle and for Tether. But M0 had a different take on this where they wanted to give flexibility to the asset issuer to be able to potentially redirect part of that yield to either the users, maybe the application developer, instead of taking all of that yield for themselves. And we're starting to see these teams like M0, Agora, and others start to take market share from USDC and USDT for that reason of being able to be more flexible with where that yield is actually diverted.
Yeah, I think it's super crucial for like ecosystems to be able to get part of the yield that that comes from these stables. It's otherwise it's a very concentrated sort of success, which sort of seems to like you could argue that in the benefit of hindsight, Ethereum would have done very very well issuing its own stablecoin, for example. Obviously, that wasn't the case at the time, but Ethereum might have been in a very different place had it done so. The on the I'm curious from your point of view on the institutional side, what you're seeing there. So going beyond stables, but you mentioned BlackRock with their Biddle fund, some of these other institutional names. What are you seeing happening there? And maybe you can share a bit about what you're noticing.
Yeah, right now the main use cases for tokenization have really primarily been in tokenized U.S. Treasuries and then private credit. Securitize is one of our partners who is a tokenization platform. So they kind of like M0 have made it much easier for people like BlackRock, Apollo, and others to issue their tokenized asset through the Securitize platform. And one of the infrastructure partners of Securitize is Wormhole, allowing that cross-chain action for these tokenized asset issuers like BlackRock. So when they want to issue a new token, many of these issuers are not only issuing on Ethereum. Of course, they almost always issue on Ethereum first, but they want to launch globally across all chains so that they can get the maximum number of users and also meet their investors where they want to be. If the investor wants to hold the BIDL on Solana or on Avalanche or wherever, they should be able to provide that option for their users. The other trend in this space that we saw this year that I was actually pretty surprised by was the willingness for these institutions to test and to experiment in DeFi. Christine Moy, I'll give credit from Apollo, was probably the leader in this space, taking the ACRED private credit fund and allowing people to collateralize it in DeFi. I think specifically on some of the markets on Solana, allowing people to collateralize their ACRED and then take stable coins out on that and loop it a little bit. Of course, you're getting risk is going up while your yield goes up a little bit as well, but seeing a massive institution like Apollo experimenting in DeFi with tokenized assets was something I did not expect to see, at least at this point. So that's really also kickstarted, again, like BlackRock being a leader in the space. Apollo's been a leader in the tokenized asset in DeFi space, and I think a lot of the other institutions in their category have been taking note of that and also starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, I definitely concur that, and I think it's really picked up in the second half of this year, where like most tier one institutions are now not just experimenting, but actually now putting in like full programs to like tokenize the entire AUM over time. And there's not just access to new markets, but and sort of making sort of these funds more easily available and transferable, but also just the advantages of reducing the back office. You can set up these funds at a fraction of the cost of what you'd have to do if you're doing a more traditional fund. Like typically with when a customer wants to switch from one fund to another in TradFi, quite often they have to settle back to cash, and then you need a lot of people to sort of manage that all of those settlement processes, and then you're like T+2 or whatever. And like by bringing these funds on chain, you can sort of avoid having to go back to cash, and you can have direct settlement with fast finality. It's a huge operational benefit. I was sort of curious to get your view on. Gosh, we're meant to have like a whole series of discussion points, but we're almost out of time. But I'm sort of curious to get your view on like where you see sort of bridging heading, where the whole sort of bridging industry is heading towards, and what should we be looking at in the future?
Yeah, with 20 seconds, I'll give a lightning answer here. So, what I mentioned earlier, Wormhole started as wrap token transfers. We've since moved to native burn and mint transfers, and now we've even gone further where the buzzword is intense, but really it's just cross-chain swaps where you can do a transfer faster than the finality of the chain that you're on. So Ethereum is classic, takes 15 minutes to get off of that chain. If you use an intense-based product like Mayan, for example, that's also built on Wormhole, you can do a cross-chain swap in 2 or 3 seconds for pennies for the transaction. And get your tokens on the next chain from Ethereum to a chain like Solana instantaneously. So we've really moved to the point where this entire category that used to be called bridging, it's no longer bridging. It's really just swapping. Are you swapping on Uniswap on one chain, or are you swapping across chains? So yeah, we've really made a lot of progress in this space, and I think we're going to continue to see more and more applications integrating with these cross-chain swap protocols to make the experience much better for users. And when there's real-world applications building on crypto, they're not going to be having users bridge across chains. It's probably going to be either some sort of an AI agent, like we talked about at an event last night, or the company doing it for the user, but they won't even care what blockchain they're working on. These intent-based swaps are just going to be happening, making the experience just like a Web2 experience is for fintech users today.
Yeah, awesome. I think kudos to you and the team for what you guys are doing to significantly improve the bridging experience, reducing risk, like improving on the security stack. It's been a big advance from where we were a few years ago with all the challenges we had with sort of these sort of almost centralized bridges that were causing us a lot of heartache. So thank you. It's been a real pleasure working with your team.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.